everyone is going bonkers for Lord Entertainer Fabian. Pretty cool champion, a little bit of the Phantom of the Opera aesthetic going on. A little bit of a crozier there for St. Patrick for Paddy's Day that's coming up now this weekend. So he has Service Undead. He's some really good moves. He is this year's, is he? Yeah, he's this year's our man's, guys. That's how good he is, okay? So we're going to talk about the top 10 champions to use with Lord Entertainer Fabian, in my opinion, okay? So let's have a look at this, and if you guys think of anybody I've missed, let me know down below. So let's look at his skills first, then we'll look at who pairs well with him, okay? So, attacks one enemy 2 times, turn meter steal, places a true fear for 2 turns if the turn meter is fully depleted, okay? Now, one enemy attack places a petrification debuff for 1 turn, has a 75% chance of placing a true fear debuff for 2 turns on all other enemies who are not under a fear or true fear debuff. That's on the active, and then on the passive, activates that skill whenever an enemy under a fear or a true fear debuff successfully uses a skill. So as we know with fear and true fear, there's a 50% chance of them actually kicking in when you're under them, unless when you're using them that's only a 10% chance, and when they're on you that's a 100% chance, is how the old joke goes. But by the book it is 50% chance, okay? So if there's multiple champions on the team, it'll only be one person that activates them, but he uses this skill again if anybody doesn't lose their turn to fear or true fear, which is completely bonkers, guys. So even if you're under fear or true fear, and even if you win that coin flip, okay, he's going to do this again and put you under petrification and everybody else under fear. This is bonkers. It's absolutely bonkers, that passive. It's crazy. It is our man's level of busted. Now the only thing is it won't be as good, or as, well, will it? It probably will, yeah. It's a serious lockdown. So it attacks all enemies then on the A3. Before attacking, has a 75% chance of decreasing the duration of all enemy buffs by 3 turns, okay? This means he can't get sheeped because he's not removing the buffs. He's decreasing them by 3 turns on an AoE, okay? Also has, that's 100% chance when book of increasing the cooldown of all enemy skills by 3 turns. So not only is he stripping all of their buffs, he's also putting everything on cooldown, locking them down that way, and then grants an extra turn if there are no buffs on the enemy team after this attack. So if he successfully, and he should, if you haven't built with enough accuracy, the only thing that might stop you is affinity, okay? But if there's no buffs left on the enemy team after this, like, what buffs do you have that are going to be on for 4 turns at the start of a fight? None. Grants an extra turn if there's no buffs on the enemy team after this. So you remove all buffs, so stone skin, or maybe protected buffs would save you. So stone skin or what you call immunity or stuff like that. He'll remove all of them, decrease their thing, then decrease the cooldown of all enemy skills, then grant an extra turn, and then on the extra turn can place the petrification and the true fear, and then your team is just in a world of hurt, and that's it. Like, and he gets back around to this then in 3 turns after this move. It's insane. Also then, whenever an enemy is revived, places a true fear debuff on that enemy for 2 turns. If there are multiple enemy champions on the team with this, or multiple champions on this, your team, with this effect, it will only activate once. Also removes any stun, freeze, sleep, provoke, fear, true fear, and petrification debuffs from this champion before the start of their turn. So he is also immune to CC. The only thing he's not immune to is lockout or turn meter reduction. Okay, so your Yumekos, our man's warlords, will still work on him, and I think Crixia is good affinity for him as well. So that's the only silver lining. You don't want to go against this guy, especially he has his 19% aura in all battles, which is good. If he had a bigger aura in arena, he'd be so much more busted. So 19 is fair on him. So guys, let's look at the top 10 and see see where we go with that, okay? These won't be in any order. There'll be 10 of them. Stop right there, guys. Click on the link below and get yourself a free Karato Fox Hunter, as well as 4 amazing epics. Here's the exact steps of what you need to do. Log out of Plarium Play on PC. Step 2, click the link in the description and register with a brand new email. Step 3, launch raid and complete the tutorial. Step 4, go to your inbox and claim your first champ. Here we go. You'll find yourself Karato Fox Hunter, as well as Uugo, Rector, Drath, Tagoar, and Mausoleum Mage as you progress through the game. That's it. It's that simple. Click on the link, follow those directions, and on with the video. First up, we have somebody in the same faction, which makes sense that we have this champion along with them, and we are on about the faction lord in Undead Hordes. You know what makes sense, okay? So he also brings true fear that cannot be resisted if he is dead, which how can he A1 if he's dead? That's because of his faction unity skill. He will join in and attack if he has 3 allies. So irresistible, true fear, A1, which will work in conjunction then with Fabian's. I'm going to probably get Fabian's name wrong at some stage. Will work in conjunction with Fabian's passive that will do the AoE if true fear fails as well. He also then gets all of the instantly activating the skill whenever he's revived, shield buff that cannot be removed, ignoring defense, and all of the other buffs that we have here. Immune to block revive, allies receiving less damage when he's dead and joining in on attacks then as well. So good pairing there, and an obvious one. To start us off, it is an obvious one, right? The next up is probably somebody that everybody would have thought of straight away when they seen the kit, but it does not go without saying, because this champion, despite being buffed 3 times? Twice anyway, I think, is exceptionally strong if their conditions can be met, and it is good old Squid Face himself, and that is Fortus. Fortus, so on the A1, he has a fear. It will always be critical if the target is under a fear or a true fear debuff, which is fantastic. His A2, that should also be critical if they're under fear or true fear. I don't know why they don't have it all. Hey, whatever. Anyway, attacks all enemies, has an 80% chance of placing a true fear debuff for 1 turn. Also cannot be resisted, guys, if they're under fear debuffs. Now, this is the big ticket skill here, I think. Attacks all enemies, will ignore 30% of each target's defense against targets under fear or true fear. What's Fabian going to do for us? He's going to place them. So he's going to open with the fear or true fear. Fortus is going to then come in with this skill, which has a 40% chance of being unlocked, if we look here, for 1 turn whenever fear or true fear debuff is placed on an enemy. So Fabian should be coming along, opening up with all of the fears and true fears. That gives us 4 times, we're talking arena here, okay? But it could be waves, so either 4 or 5 times chances of a 40% chance of unlocking this, which should get this unlocked. This becomes powered up. Let's see. Oh yeah, the skill of this damage increases by 10% every time a fear or true fear debuff is placed on an enemy. So that's another 40 or 50% of damage on top of that, and he's ignoring 30% of target's defense, and it's always critical if they have fear or true fear on it as well, on them as well. So he can nuke opening with this if he's paired with Fabian, and that's going to be exceptionally good there. And then he also has with him on the team, your whole team has a bigger chance. The enemy team has more chance of succumbing to the effects of fear or true fear when he's on the team. So as we know, fear or true fear has a 50% chance of proccing. Even though you're under it, you have a coin flip of a chance on whether or not it's going to affect you, okay? With Fortus on the enemy team, if you're under fear or true fear, you now have a 65% chance of it affecting you, which makes it worse or better if you have him on your team, okay? So extremely good pairing there with Fortus and Fabian, okay? So that is a very, very good one there, guys. Now, our next up, actually, we'll stay here, and it is, of course, Night Queen Crixia. So why Night Queen Crixia? Well, Fabian, you're playing the lockout game, you're playing the control game. Now, she is going to also then be able to, his lockout, he's going to lock out everybody. Okay, so he's going to reduce the skills. She can change form. She's immune to lockout. She can change form and reduce all of your allies' skills. And then he can do that again. And then she can change back whenever her cooldowns are all done, and she can do it again. So you can constantly keep the enemy team locked out. An incredibly good pairing there. And I mean, it's Knights, Revenant and Undead. That makes sense that they'd pair well together, I think. So that's extremely good. We're into Shadow King, guys. So you know who it's going to be. It is going to be Yumeko, okay? Exact same reasoning. Build her with high resistance and high accuracy if you can. If you can't, just build her with the highest resistance you can and whatever accuracy you get along the way, and use her to refresh everybody's skills. Once she does that, everybody goes through their skills again. If there's still an enemy team standing, I'm going to be very, very surprised. But she's going to bring Fabian's cooldowns back around again. He's going to be able to reset everybody's he's going to be able to decrease everybody's cooldowns again and place those spheres again. And yeah, you're not going to be having a good day if that's being used against you. All right. Now, another one, somebody that I don't think anybody has yet, actually. Would I be correct? Yeah, Embry's the Anomaly. Okay, in Form 1 is going to be a good pairing. Okay, so destroys max HP and a 1 AoE attack, and then also increases the duration of one random debuff on all enemies by 1 turn and cannot be resisted if there's any necrosis stacks. Then we also have an AoE True Fear on all enemies for 1 turn. Okay, and effects again cannot be resisted if enemies have a necrosis stack, then grants an extra turn. So we're getting the True Fear, decrease attack, extra turn, and then we can go into this. Or we could start with this if enemies have Stone Skin. We could have him as our opener, because if Fabian is going into Stone Skin, we could have problems there. But with this, he'll remove any Stone Skin buffs on the enemy team, replace it with True Fear. So then Fabian can go ahead and go with his thing again. And yeah, exceptionally good pairing, but nobody has this punter just yet. But I'd say some people are maybe halfway there. Would it be possible to be halfway there? Anyway, let's go on. It's an obvious one. Our man's Lockout, just absolute nightmare, guys. If you ever come across Armand's and Fabian in the same team, possibly with Yumeko or Crixia or something like that, just skip. It just seems like an absolute nightmare. We all know what Armand's does. Stun and turn meter control and sheep. And then he's back to his A2 again, where he does it all again, and it's just an absolute nightmare. So, exceptionally good pairing as well. Armand's is going to pair well with pretty much everybody anyway, though, right? But we're going to stay in the Barbarians faction, right? And we're looking at the faction Lord. And Gregor is the most not talked about faction lord in the game, I have to say. Maybe Bolland actually is thought of as worse, I don't know. I must take a poll actually, or a poll, depends where you're from. Anyway, the attacks one enemy, 50% chance of placing a provoke debuff for 1 turn. So don't need any books to increase that. You can't, it just increases damage. On this then, attacks all enemy, increases the duration of all enemy, decreases duration of all enemy buffs by 1 turn, increases ally buffs, places a shield. So none of that is what we're looking at just yet. It's going to be here. This is one of the things, okay? So if we have Fabian on the team and 3 Barbarians, okay, he can open with increase attack, increase accuracy. So increase accuracy is going to help Fabian place all of the debuffs and do all of the control. So 50% increase accuracy. So that's huge, right? Then if we have 1 faction ally, he's going to decrease the cooldown of all allies' skills. And if we have 2, he's going to fill the turn meter of all allies by 20%. Okay, if you have waves, then it's going to do the instant turn. If you have a 5 team, but for our purposes, 2 allies, and he'll fill the turn meter and give you increase attack and increase accuracy. However, it gets even better when you look at his passive. You're not going to miss or fail any placement, guys, with this passive, right? When attacked, 20% chance of placing a provoke debuff on the attacker for 1 turn. We don't care about that. With 1 faction ally, allies deal 25% more damage to enemies under stun, sleep, fear, true fear, freeze and petrification. So that you're going to straight up deal 25% more damage when you're coupling him with Tribune Heraclitus and 1 more Barbarian. And then if you have 2 faction allies, allies ignore 50% of target's resistance when applying whatever fear and true fear debuffs and petrification. So not only is he giving you increased accuracy, so if you have 300 accuracy, right? They need maybe 450 resistance, okay? But you've gotten increased accuracy by 50%, so your 300 now becomes 450, okay? So you're level pegging. You're still going to win. However, with this, reduce their resistance by 50% passively as well. So that their 450 now becomes 225 and you're up at 450. It's so insanely powerful, guys, for CC and for everything else. So I used to use this with Armands and Gregor and I can't remember who, maybe Thor and Odin or something like that. But I would constantly fail to turn meter control Mitrala, but I would never fail to place the stun, and that's because they were cutting her resistance in half and the stun was getting through. But that didn't apply to the turn meter control from Armands, so it didn't go through as well. So this is huge, especially combined with this. Okay, so Gregor not to be overlooked as a possible combination for him and Fabian. Okay, now on to the last 3, guys, and we are going to nip into on to the last 3. But we'll actually sum them together here, okay? So we're going to look at Loriaka, Yoshi the Drunkard, and Lady Kimmy, okay? As openers for before Fabian goes. And that's because Loriaka opens turn meter fill by 20%, block debuffs, and increase accuracy. That means she can go against Torment teams. She places the block debuffs, increases accuracy on all your team, and then fills the turn meter of all allies. It means that the passive from Torment can't work at all on you to CCU encounter because you have block debuffs on. So she is number 1 for that in my regard, with increased accuracy. Then we have Kimmy, who is susceptible to being stuck with Torment teams. So Kimmy then is extremely good. She has a 15% turn meter fill, but she also has increased speed by 30% and a 50% increased accuracy as well, and then a strip and block buffs placement on the enemy team. So she is good, but she is vulnerable to Torment teams as well because of all the buffs, turn meters, and everything else that's going on. Then we have Yoshi the Drunkard, so we're staying in Shadowkin, and it is the other skill. So it's this here: increase attack and 50% increase accuracy on all allies for 2 turns, and then he also has a chance of placing a true fear debuff on all enemies for 1 turn as well. So not only are you getting that increased accuracy to help Fabian out, you are also getting the true fears on the enemy team to help Fabian out as well with his passive. So if you got cut in or something like that, whose passive would let you cut in? You have Temporal Chains, you have Lady Kimmy, you have Xena, there's a few now that would let you cut in like that. Even what's her name, Valkyrie as well. So the true fear lands on there, and then if they were successful in getting their move on, it would trigger Fabian's passive as well. So he's a really good opener and partner for Fabian too. So that is nearly all. We've one more, and that is Supreme Kale, guys. Not somebody you hear talked about very often, but Supreme Kale is so overlooked, and it's because of everything being irresistible. All of his skills are irresistible. Irresistible poisons on AoE, irresistible weaken on the A1, and this just takes the biscuit. He places increased accuracy on all allies for 2 turns, and similar to Gregor, except it's a buff, not a passive, or a debuff, not a passive, he places an irresistible 50% decrease resistance. That is huge. 50% decrease resistance that is irresistible. It just allows you to do so much in the game. The only thing that's stopping that is either immunity or stone skin. It's really good. Or some of the champions passives like Yumeko or what's her name, Riho Bone Spear, possibly. But yeah, it's incredibly good. So increase, same example I gave for Gregor, guys. He's increasing your accuracy by half again and dividing their resistance by 2. It's just so good, and also fills his own turn meter by 10% for each decreased resistance that's placed. So I don't really need to tell you how good that is, guys, and definitely if they're partnered together, Fabian's not going to get resisted by anyone, anywhere. So yeah, those are 2 really good picks I like there, are Gregor and Supreme Kale. Supreme Kale is much more direct, but it needs a debuff, whereas Gregor's is passive placement. And the other one I really like is Fortus as well. So a few good picks there, guys. Let me know, did I miss out anyone really obvious there or anything like that? And best of luck with the rest of the fusion, guys. Like and subscribe. I'll catch you in the next one. Bye bye.